Jack Keating, who's the pastor at the Methodist Church just around the corner from St. Luke's, and sometimes the pastor from the Lutheran Church will join us, and the pastor from the Presbyterian/Congregational Church over in Westvale will come and join us too. But usually it's just Jack and I, and theoretically we're there to do Bible study for the next week's coming readings. So we got together last Monday and we talked about these readings and what they have to say. Although I have to be honest with you, we also we have a free-ranging conversation. And we talk about all sorts of things. We complain about you. No, we don't. In my calendar, it's under Pastor BS. So, Bible study. Anyway, so we were there and we were reading the readings, and we're at this point in the story where Jesus is being crucified, which is, a pretty horrendous punishment. And so we were sort of talking about death, and we were talking about grief. And Jack, his wife passed away a couple years ago, and so we had a really kind of really good conversation about the experience of loss and grief, and that's sort of been a theme throughout this week. So I was glad for that meeting. I met with someone earlier this week who was very concerned about their loved ones who had passed on, and we had a good conversation about that and how their grief was going for them. And then yesterday I went to a funeral, and it was a funeral for a man who was younger than me, though not exactly a young man. And his loss was sort of tragic. He very quick. He had been diagnosed with cancer, and within a couple of months he had passed. And it was as funerals go, it was beautiful. It was sad, and it was moving, and it was hopeful. And then I have a funeral to do tomorrow on behalf of my colleague in Skinny Atlas. So right after church today, I have to go to the visiting hours and then the service tomorrow morning. But at the funeral yesterday, the preacher was a priest who had been a friend of the deceased, and they had known each other for 20 plus years. And he said something that really I've been kind of holding on to, and I think I'm going to be thinking about for quite a while. And one of the things he talked about was how he took reassurance in Jesus' promises, like outlined here in this reading today, that this person who had died, his friend, was at peace. He took a lot of solace from that. He knew that he wasn't suffering anymore, that he wasn't facing any trials, that he was at peace. His friend was at peace, and he found that truly, deeply comforting. But at the same time, he said that he wasn't at peace. I'm not at peace, he said. And I think that's true of our experience. When I think about my experiences of death and loss of people who were near and dear to me, that there is great comfort in knowing that they are in God's eternal care and that they are at peace. And at the same time, I myself was often not at peace. And I imagine many of us can probably relate to that, because when we lose someone we love, even though faith tells us that the promises for them are true and manifest, and the experience of our own lives and the experience of the church is that they truly are at peace, awaiting that day of resurrection. And yet we still are in turmoil. That for many of us, that when someone we love is lost, there's a hole of their shape in our hearts that never truly, I think, is filled. Maybe it's scarred over a little bit, and maybe the weight of grief that we once experienced is easier for us to bear. But I don't think that ever really goes away. And I've been thinking about that a lot, because this is kind of funny, but we cling to life. Despite the promises of what awaits us, we still cling to life. Right? There's a Kenny Chesney song, and then one of the throwaway lines is, "Everybody wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to go right now." And I think that that's true, right? That we do take comfort in these promises that are given to us. And this promise of Jesus to the thief, that he will be with him, is something that I think we can feel is true in our hearts. And we hold on to that. At the same time, most of us, and this isn't universal, most of us are not necessarily in a hurry to pass through that veil. And we cling to life. And I've been thinking about that a lot because I think it says something that I think is really important, which is that this life is important, that this life matters, that we're here for a purpose and for meaning, that this isn't just some sort of way station on the way to something better, but this is kind of like the entree. There's like a dessert waiting for us, but this is the entree. This is the meat of our existence. This is the meal at which we have been invited to partake. And so we cling to our lives because on some level we fundamentally understand that this life matters and it's important what we do with it. And I think about myself because, like you maybe, I think a lot about the future, like I have a plan for the future, like retirement, which is in 6 years and 7 months, and I have to think about, the kids go, boo, that's so sweet, thank you. We'll see if we can change that around. And I think about, my kids, they're getting ready. My daughter is going to be going to college in just a little bit over a year, and I'm not sure how we're going to pay for all that. She doesn't know where she wants to go. She wants to go to California, which is far away and cool. I understand that, but it's expensive to go to California, and you're not going to be flying back and forth all the time because we don't have money for that. And then the other day she comes to me and says she was looking at colleges in Australia. That's great. I lived in Australia. It's wonderful. I would totally go there, but you're not coming home for 4 years. You understand that, right? So I hope you really like it there. And I think about that sort of stuff. Right? We spend a lot of time sort of planning for the future and what's going to be coming next. And maybe unlike you, I probably spend a little too much time in the past, either dwelling over things that I regret because I got a long list of them. I wasn't baptized until I was 35. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I got a lot of stuff to sort of think about. And there's lots of people that I wish I had treated differently, and things I wish I hadn't said, and things I wish I had done. And I probably spend too much time there, to be honest with you. I don't think it's healthy to dwell on the past. I'm not at the point where I'm waking up every night worried about it, but I think it's one of those things that if you live long enough, you undoubtedly have things in your past that you wish you could change. And so that funeral yesterday really made me thinking about his friend who felt unsettled. But also he said something important, which is that the man who died was originally from Georgia, and his closest friends and this priest were all from Georgia. His family were all in Georgia. And he said, as he was sick for a couple of months leading up to his death, he really wished that he could be there with his friend, right? That he was texting and calling, but he really wanted to thank those who were here and supporting this man and his wife and family and everything. And so I really think we should probably spend a little more time focusing on the here and now, because I really do think that is Jesus' central message, that you have to live in this moment. And in this moment, you have an opportunity to live fully into your calling as a child of God or not. And there's nothing you can change about the past and what's already happened. And the future truly is unknown. We can plan for it as best we can, but, I've lived long enough to know that very little of what I imagined about the future turned out to be true. I remember being about 15 or so and thinking ahead to the year 2000, because that seemed very futuristic, 2000. And we'll probably have bases on the moon or something. And this is what I thought to myself, gosh, in 2000, I'll be 33. I'll be too old to do anything. Because that's how 15-year-olds, my life was going to be over at 30. And really it hadn't even started in 2000. That's a year after I met my wife. So lots has unfolded. So we're not very good at predicting what's going to happen because who knows what's going to happen in the future, and there's nothing you can do about the past. And so I think the best we can do, and this is what Jesus says, is to be fully present in this moment, be fully alive in this here and in this now. And don't put off doing the good things that we want to do in the future or reaching out to the people we want to talk to in the future, but to do those things now. To be a good neighbor today. To love one another today. Because that's all we really have. We only have this moment. The past is a country we cannot revisit. The future is a ghost that we don't know what's going to be. We have today. And as Christians, we have this promise that even though the future is unknown and unknowable, we also have a promise that it's something that we can anticipate and look forward to, even if we're unsure of exactly what that is. That the promises that Jesus has given us, that God has granted us through our salvation in Christ's atoning sacrifice, means that we can be fully alive to this moment. That we can be fearless and bold and courageous in our loving action because we have these promises, this assurance that we will be with Christ in paradise. And that we have been giving those promises for that very reason, so that we might be God's loving agents in this world. That we might reflect the glory that has been shown us into the world around us, so that the dark corners might be lit up and that the evil might be pushed back and defeated. That we can be the people who are fully alive today. And by doing so, we build the future that we hope for. By being people who live in hope fully right now, our hopes become realized in the days to come. That the future that awaits us, whatever the world brings our way, is one